Politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Without any doubt, in this case, sanctions are driving Russian-US relations towards a dead end, and they're inflicting very serious damage on them. I'm convinced that this will harm the national long-term interests of the American state, of the American people. It's a pity that our partners are going down this road, but we've not closed the door on the negotiation process. I hope that the common sense and the willingness to settle all problems by peaceful and diplomatic means will prevail.
All right, folks, welcome back. That was Vladimir Putin reacting to the sanctions that were put on Russia, the additional sanctions the day before. So let's say yesterday was Thursday, so that was Tuesday, so that was probably Wednesday, reacting to the sanctions that the president had put on Russia, the further sanctions. And joining us now is Dr. Leon Aron, resident scholar and director of Russian Studies at the American Enterprise Institute. Hello, doctor.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. How culpable is Vladimir Putin for what happened to the Malaysian airliner?
Well, I think if you listen to anybody who listened to President Obama opening statement and also his answers to the questions, there's very little doubt that Russia has been determined by the U.S. to be broadly culpable. And the key phrase in this whole investigation is that it's been ascertained that the missile that shot down the Malaysian airliner came from the rebel-held territory. Now, it's very hard to imagine a Ukrainian battery commander or missile battery commander risking his life driving into the rebel-held territory where he would be scalped to fire a missile at any aircraft. The Ukrainians have not downed any aircraft in this war, whereas the Russian-supported forces have downed almost half a dozen. So, if it was shot from the rebel-held territory, it doesn't really matter whether it was ordered by Russia or whether it was done by the rebels themselves. Bottom line is that Russia is responsible for recklessly giving the rebels this type of equipment, truly sophisticated, extremely powerful, and extremely lethal, and for supporting them in this whole war.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what the president implied, although he did back off from blaming Vladimir Putin by name. What happens now? What does the international community, I mean, pending an investigation, and the president put the onus upon the European community to do that, but once the investigation confirms what we already know, as you've just described it so aptly, what do they need to do to make Vladimir Putin realize that this can't happen again?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think as far as the U.S. is concerned, my sense is that the negotiations with the Europeans are already going on because on new sanctions. Because first of all, I think Russia is going to impede the access to the Iraq, to the scene of the downing, in order to remove whatever they deem pointing in the direction of a Russian-fired missile. But eventually, I think this will be confirmed, and frankly, I think President Obama already has all the intelligence means to confirm. They just want the international community to arrive to their own conclusion. And you said, what's next? Well, I think the U.S. and the Europeans, even as we speak, are talking about new sanctions. And in the wake of this truly international outrage, I think those are going to be very strong, very painful sanctions. I don't think we really need to catch Putin, with a smoking gun on this. Nobody's going to find a tape of him ordering the strike, or anybody from the Kremlin. They're much cleverer than that. And besides, the tragedy of it is that nobody in the Kremlin may not have even ordered it. They just gave it to these people. So I think it's becoming, to me, after I listened to the president, it sort of became a fairly moot question, all this international investigation, so long as they establish what they established. And I think the next steps, maybe as early as next week, are going to be more sanctions, and probably truly biting sanctions on Russia.
And what does that do? Because we heard the translation of President Putin before, as I introed you, reacting to the latest round of sanctions announced by President Obama the day before this jet went down. So if the sanctions tighten, if the sanctions increase, how does he react? Does that push him into some kind of corner? Does he acquiesce and the sanctions are viewed as working? Or does he, double down and react and lash out in some way?
Well, this, of course, is the key question. I think, given how important domestically, for his domestic standing, for his regime, the support of these ostensibly suppressed and repressed Russian brethren in Ukraine, to whose defense Russia leapt so valiantly, given the domestic political stakes, no, he is not going to abandon the rebels. I think there are two options that he's facing. He may do what you suggested, to show who is the boss, and in fact, maybe even move Russian troops across the border, despite the sanctions. Or he may listen to some of his advisors. Apparently there's a division who telling him to cool it, because if it starts really hitting the blood line of the Russian economy, which is oil and gas, then it truly will deprive the state of money. I think in that case, his preferred option would be what's known as a frozen conflict. In other words, what he will start saying is, all right. What happened. That's all a tragedy. It's all very bad. Let's leave it behind us, however, and let's.
Right. So I have Kiev. We downed the plane. The people died. But let's take it from here and make believe that didn't happen.
Well, something to that effect. The bottom line is, let us start negotiating. Now, what that means is that what rebels hold, they hold. The so-called ceasefire essentially will leave Russia in control of a big chunk of the Ukrainian industrial heartland. And then you could negotiate. You could negotiate for weeks. You could negotiate for months. You could negotiate for years. The problem here is that, at least until this happened, and actually this is such a public relations disaster for Russia, which translates into a diplomatic disaster. Before this, actually, France and Germany actually were pushing Ukraine towards this type of a solution. Start negotiating, have a ceasefire. Okay, so the rebels violate the ceasefire. That's all right. You could live with it. But start negotiating. Don't move the Ukrainian troops to try to regain the territory. Stay where you are. This would be, I think, for Putin, an ideal solution, because it keeps up, it saves his face domestically, but it also, which is the most important thing for him, because I think he's heading for presidency for life, and it keeps the international community sort of, at bay, because after all, they're negotiating. Now, all of that, I think, was quite plausible until yesterday. I'm not sure that France and Germany would continue to push Ukraine to this type of solution, but I think this is something that Putin may try as plan B.
Yeah, and we have less than a minute. The fact that America seems to be pushing this on the European countries, is that advantageous for Putin?
Well, I think it was. It was, like I said, it was, and it had been until yesterday. At this point, I think even the Europeans will sort of be shamed into changing their policy.
Gotcha. Doctor, very insightful. Thank you for joining us, sir. Appreciate it very much.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Leon Aron, ladies and gentlemen, a resident scholar and director of Russian studies at the American Enterprise Institute. And you heard it from him that he thinks Putin is well on his way to becoming president for life of Russia. Maybe he needs a new reset button. Hey, Vlad, what do you need for Christmas? Well, you know that reset button you gave me, it's a little tarnished. Could you have John Kerry bring a new one, please? Sure, Vlad. On the Steve Malzberg Show.